Alright troops, it's your man Chris Scullion from TireOldHack.com with the first in what is hopefully a series of kind of unscripted review roundups. The deal is I'm currently writing a kind of secret project at the moment, and it's taking up quite a lot of my writing time, and I've also got this kind of large backlog of games on Switch and other systems to review, and as well as playing through them, the actual act of reviewing them and playing them to completion and writing big reviews is taking up a lot of time. And I need to dedicate as much time as possible to this project instead. As such, I've decided to come up with this kind of alternative way of doing it. What's going to happen is I'm going to take maybe 10 games at a time, maybe less, maybe more, it depends on that particular week. And yeah, I'm just going to talk through them normally without a script or anything like you would usually get in a lot of YouTube video reviews. This is just me talking about the game as if I was talking to you in a public house of choice. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy it, and hopefully it can become a kind of weekly ritual that you check in with it every week to see what's new in the world of kind of games that aren't really getting the attention that maybe big sites can allocate to them, because I tend to focus on smaller games rather than AAA stuff, because let's face it, you can get coverage on those anywhere. So yeah, hopefully you like it. If you're on my Patreon, for which there's a link at the bottom of this YouTube video, you will get the audio of this a couple of days early, so you can kind of treat it almost as like a kind of podcast. And then for everyone else, the video with footage kind of accompanying the audio will go up on YouTube a couple of days later. So hopefully every week you can kind of enjoy it, and all fun and games. So first up is Farming Simulator Switch on Nintendo Switch, surprisingly enough. This is a kind of straight-laced farming game. Obviously there's plenty of other farming games out there, like your Harvest Moon, Stardew Valley and stuff like that, but this is not one of those kind of light RPG, almost kind of JRPG style games. This is a very much a serious, listen, do you want to be a farmer? Well, here's what it takes, so knuckle down and pay attention, one of those kind of things. And yeah, it's an interesting one. This is the first time I've played a farming simulator game. I've always looked at them with kind of curiosity, because I've not really got any interest in farming, but I've kind of looked at it and thought, that's just crazy enough to work. And yeah, I've always been kind of curious to try one out, so this is my first attempt at trying one, and it's fun. It's actually more fun than I thought it would be. It's very serious. It's quite complex as well. Luckily there's a lot of tutorials at the start to kind of take you through the ins and outs, and you kind of need it, because you can't just saunter in and start messing about with it. I mean, you can, but it'll take you quite a long time to learn the ins and outs of it. It's not just a case of jumping in a tractor and doing whatever task you need to do. There's a lot of steps before you can do that. You can get in the tractor, then you've got to connect it to a tool at the front or back, and then you've got to connect it to a weight to kind of steady and balance the tractor, and then you've got to lower the head, and you've got to turn on the tool and all this kind of stuff. And every kind of piece of equipment has its own control system and its own kind of step-by-step process before you can get it working. And it can be quite overwhelming, but thankfully there's kind of tool tips up the top corner that kind of give you the controls every time, which is useful. So yeah, I enjoy it a lot more than I thought I would. It's an interesting one. If it's not going to be to everyone's tastes, if you want to kind of mess about, there is, to a degree, you can mess about, as you can kind of see in the footage I've captured here. A lot of times I just spent kind of wandering about the surrounding landscape, which obviously isn't really what being a farmer is all about, but I still took great joy in putting my tractor into a lake by mistake, well, deliberately by mistake, and just kind of wandering about and enjoying the scenery, which is okay for a Switch. It looks alright, it runs smoothly enough, which is slightly more important, but it's detailed enough. It's obviously never going to hold a candle to the sort of things you'd see on Xbox One and PlayStation 4, but it looks okay for a Switch game. For a handheld farming simulator, certainly it looks the part. So yeah, if serious farming on the go is your cup of tea, you could do a lot worse than this. It's very... Don't expect kind of lots of jokes and stuff like that. This is very much a straight down the middle serious business game, but if that's what you're into, then yeah, this is as good an effort as you'll get, I would imagine. Taking things in a completely opposite direction, we've got Pic-A-Pix Deluxe on Switch. Now, Pic-A-Pix Color was on 3DS and Wii U at the start of 2017, but it kind of didn't get a lot of attention, mainly because Wii U was dead and the 3DS. Picross is already a kind of niche game, and so a Picross kind of third party, although Picross is third party anyway, but a kind of, for want of a better term, an imitation Picross was kind of obviously going to get even less attention, but it's on Switch now, which is good because I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Pic-A-Pix Color when it first came out, and I'm glad that it's coming to Switch now because hopefully it'll get a bigger audience. Essentially, it's Picross but with colours. So instead of just filling in, you've got your kind of number clues like you do in Picross, and like 2 squares, then 4 squares, then 5 squares, and you've got to figure out which blocks have to be coloured in and which blocks have to be kind of crossed out to kind of form a picture. But the twist here is that there are different colours as well, so that rather than just filling in the squares, you also need to figure out which colours are supposed to be. And sometimes that can be more complicated, especially in the bigger puzzles, but sometimes it can make things a bit easier as well, or at least you can logically figure it out a bit easier, because there might be times when you're stuck and thinking, oh well, there's a 2 here and a 3 and a 5 and I don't know where they're supposed to go, but I at least know the middle one's got to be brown, and I can tell by the adjacent column that these bits are brown, and so on and so forth. But you can kind of, it opens up the possibilities of using logic to kind of figure out what's going where, and it makes it a lot, basically gives you more rules to play with, which when you're playing Picross a lot, I've been playing Picross for decades now, and it gets to the point when Picross S came out earlier this year, well last year now, I was slightly disappointed by it because it just felt like the same old Picross, with a lot of features from the Picross E series on 3DS taken out. You kind of get the impression that Picross S is going to get a Picross S2, S3, S4, and they're going to re-add the features that were taken out. So for now, Picross S on Switch is a really kind of bare bones basic Picross game, and if you've been playing Picross for years and years, you already know the patterns to look out for, and you know the rules, and you can pretty much plough through all the puzzles in that game really quickly. Pic-A-Pix Deluxe, on the other hand, by adding colour, it gives you an extra kind of level of strategy, and you have to sit and have a proper think about it now. Go, oh, actually, what about this and what about that? And there's also a bunch of kind of black and white Picross puzzles in there too, if you're after that. It also has one of the greatest pieces of music you'll hear in a game. Probably the cheeriest music you'll ever hear. So I really enjoy it. If you're into Picross, and even if you haven't bought Picross S yet and you were trying to get around to it, maybe give this a go instead, because to be honest, I prefer it. Certainly on Switch, this is the best Picross game of 2 at the moment. So yeah, it's well worth a look. Lots of puzzles in there. There's DLC puzzles on the way. I'm really happy with it. Another interesting one is Maria the Witch on Switch, which was, from what I can gather, was a mobile game first, and is now on Switch. It kind of makes sense because it looks like it's designed for tapping the sides of the screen. Essentially, you're a witch on a broomstick, and you've got to get through all these levels by getting from one end to the other, and you can collect these optional coins, which when you land on, there's platforms, there's bits of road that you can land on the floor safely, and if you've got a coin, you can buy a checkpoint, basically, so that when you die, you start from there instead of the start of the level. And there's also letters you can collect and put in post boxes later on. It's kind of for bonus points and stuff. It's got a really interesting control system. So you press either A or Y on the controller to kind of swoop upwards on your broomstick. So if you press A, you'll swoop to the right in a kind of almost like a clockwise direction. If you hold it down for long enough and you've got enough space, it just goes round and round in a circle, basically. And if you do it with Y, the Y button, she goes to the left, and they'll look like a counterclockwise direction. Actually, that's the opposite, isn't it? Yeah, if you press A, you go anti-clockwise. If you press Y, you go clockwise. Regardless, the point is, to move to the right, then you have to kind of tap the A button, because if you hold it down, she swoops upwards. So you're kind of rapidly tapping it to kind of burst forward a wee bit, but not too high to kind of start swooping up. So you're kind of, it's a really odd control system, and it takes a 5 or 10 minutes to get used to. But once you do, it's quite cool, because it's a different way of playing a game, and it's, think of it as Flappy Bird if Flappy Bird was actually good and playable. It's that kind of thing where you have a lot more control than you would in a game like that. It takes a wee while to get that control, but once you do, you really feel like you've mastered it, and kind of swooping your way through really narrow passageways and swooping between enemies and stuff is actually quite satisfying once you get going. So yes, it's an interesting one. It's certainly not a must-have by any means, but I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Especially at the start, I was like, this is a bit weird, but yeah, I got there eventually. I kind of got it eventually and going, oh, okay, right, I get what you're doing. Maria the Witch, well played. So yeah, worth a look if you've got some eShop money lying about. You could do worse. You might want to investigate. I need to check and see whether it's on mobile and how much it is. It might be cheaper on mobile, and it might be worth trying it on that instead, because certainly I can imagine tapping the left and right hand side of the screen would be easier. Certainly more intuitive than pressing the A and Y buttons on the controller, so you might be worth checking that out first, especially if it's cheaper, which I would imagine it probably will be. But that's Maria the Witch, and not too bad, not too shabby. Same deal with Xenoraid, as opposed to Xenoblade. Xenoraid's a kind of shooting game with a twist in that it's not a scrolling shoot 'em up, so it's not like a anything like that. It's more what's it like, Centipede and stuff like that. It's more similar to Galaxians, even, or Galaga, where the screen doesn't move. It's a static screen and your ship's at the bottom and you can move it about in all directions and shoot upwards. The twist is that you've got 4 different ships, and each ship has its own abilities. So I say abilities, it's just weapon types essentially at first. So one ship can fire a machine gun straight, and another ship fires like a scatter gun, almost like a shotgun shot, but it's slower. Another one can fire missiles, which are even slower but really powerful, and one can fire a flamethrower. In every world you get 4 different types of ships to keep things interesting and make things up a bit. It's an interesting one because when you move side to side and shoot, you shoot at an angle. Your ship kind of tilts sideways when you move sideways, meaning you're not just shooting straight up, and that can actually make it easier to get hit. Especially when you're starting playing the game, you'll get hit a lot more than you would in a normal shoot 'em up, because you're concentrating more on your bullets. You know, most shoot 'em ups, when you fire straight up or straight to the side, you kind of know where the bullets are going, so you can line yourself up with an enemy and just shoot without looking and concentrate on dodging the bullets, because you know that as long as you're roughly lined up with an enemy, you're going to hit them, and you can concentrate on looking at your ship and avoiding enemy fire. But in this, because lining up with an enemy doesn't necessarily mean you're going to hit them, because your bullets might go off to the side, you're focusing more on your bullets to make sure you're hitting the enemy, and therefore you're missing a lot of the enemy shots, so you can take a lot more hits in Xenoraid when you're first playing it. So it takes me a bit longer, it's got more of a learning curve than other shooters, but it's decent. It's good once it gets going. It can get quite repetitive after a wee while, especially when you finish a world and you've spent all this time leveling up and upgrading your ships, and then suddenly it goes, okay, here's a new world with totally new ships that haven't leveled up, and you're going, oh, that's a bit annoying. That can be a bit of a gut punch when you suddenly go, oh, okay, I need to start all over again with new ships. But other than that, it's fine. It's quite good. If you're after a shooter that offers something a tiny wee bit different, this could be worth a look. Obviously, just watch this video, and if this is the kind of thing that appeals to you, go for it. One that will probably appeal to fewer people is Ben 10 on the Switch, which is obviously, it goes without saying that you're always going to get licensed kids games on every system, and the Switch is no different. So Ben 10 is based on, from what I gather, is the reboot of Ben 10, which is currently doing the rounds on Cartoon Network. I was too old for Ben 10 in the first place, so I'm certainly too old for this reboot of it. From what I can tell by the cutscenes, Ben is very insufferable, very annoying, and I don't like him, but hey, if that's what the kids like these days, who am I to judge? Knock yourself out, kids. It's your standard licensed kids action game where you run from left to right just beating up monsters. The twist obviously is that Ben can turn into loads of different aliens, and they've all got their own abilities, but truth be told, it's pretty generic, it's pretty standard, it's inoffensive. No one's going to, if you buy this game for like a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, they're going to enjoy it. They're not going to have long-term memories of it when they're in their 20s. They're not going to say, oh, do you remember Ben 10 on the Switch that rocked my frock or socks? they're going to play it, enjoy it for a while and forget all about it, so it's fine. If you find it cheap enough, it'll be fine, but there's really nothing remarkable. The performance on Switch is quite bad. The video you're seeing here, I capture all my videos at 60 frames a second, so you can see exactly what you would see on the TV. And there's a lot of kind of choppiness, and the scrolling isn't smooth when you move from side to side. It's kind of jumpy a bit, and there are times when it kind of really stutters a lot, so that's a bit unfortunate, but kids aren't really going to care, to be honest. Not the kids are stupid. A kid will still know a really bad game if they play one. This isn't a bad game, it's just a generic game, so if you see it cheap and you want to kind of pass the time, or you want like something simple for your kids to play that isn't too offensive, fine, but it's not going to change the world by any stretch of the imagination. Up next is Pinball FX 3, the third in the Pinball FX series. You'll be surprised to learn, by Zen Studios, who've been doing pinball games for a long time now. They did Zen Pinball and then moved on to the Pinball FX series. This has been on other systems, and the idea is that you get the base game with one table, and then they create loads of other tables, either original ones or licensed ones. So there's a lot of kind of licensed tables here, based on the likes of Aliens and Family Guy and let me think off the top of my head, Bob's Burgers and Archer and The Walking Dead and Portal and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, the thing is that every table. Oh, and there's a Universal Studios one which has got like Back to the Future and Jaws and ET tables, which is quite cool. And the idea is that you just buy the tables you want, basically in packs. So there's the Universal pack has 3 or 4 tables in it. The Alien pack has 3 Aliens themed tables in it. The Balls of Glory, I think it's called, table has those 4 kind of Fox cartoons, so Archer and Family Guy, Bob's Burgers and American Dad are all in one pack, and so you pick the ones that would appeal to you, and they do vary in quality. A lot of the kind of original ones are maybe a wee bit weaker. They've kind of got less going on, some of them, so it's probably best to stick to the more licensed ones. But it's fine. Where it differs from Stern Pinball, which I think it's called Stern Pinball, which is the other one that's out. The arcade classics type one, the Pinball Classics one, which is out on Switch as well, actually launched on the same day. That one focuses very much on, I'll cover that in a later roundup, the next roundup, because I've not played enough of it yet to kind of come to a conclusion. It focuses more on accurately recreating existing real life pinball tables, so they've got like a Last Action Hero table and stuff like that, and they focus on absolutely perfect renditions of those tables. So you've got the cheesy quality sound and you've got the LED things at the top. Pinball FX 3 instead knows it's a video game, and so its tables are video game based, so you'll get characters walking on the table and wee hidden panels which will take you to kind of bonus mini game screens with smaller tables, and you'll get actual characters standing and talking over and everything like that. So there's more kind of weird and wacky things going on, like one of the Aliens tables, the alien will grab your ball and launch it across the table and stuff like that. Stuff that wouldn't be possible in a real life table. So to that extent, I kind of enjoy it more. It's my own personal taste. If you're a pinball diehard and a purist, and you might prefer the other one, the Stern Pinball Classics one, whatever it's called, because it's more realistic, whereas this is more just daft. Like the Portal table's got portals you can hit the ball in, and it makes it appear elsewhere and stuff like that. It's fun. But yeah, that's Pinball FX 3. Obviously it can get quite pricey if you're buying all the tables. I've got a video up elsewhere on my channel. I'll put a link to it in the kind of information in this YouTube video, which has I've captured footage of all 30 launch tables on the Switch. Definitely, if you're interested in this game, give that a watch, because that will show you every single table, a minute or so of every table, so you can more easily choose which ones would appeal to you. Instead of buying them all, you can pick and choose which ones to buy, so give that a go. But yeah, I like it. Pinball FX 3, if pinball's what you're into, this is a good one. The only kind of quibble at this point, and hopefully it's something that can be patched, is when you're playing it on handheld, the frame rate drops a bit. It's smoother on TV than it is on handheld, and that's a bit of a shame, especially when the ball's pinging about at top speed. It would be nice to have that at 60 frames a second, but hey ho, what can you do? Moving on, we've got Octodad, Dadliest Catch, which came out a couple of years ago on other systems and now it's on the Switch. It's one of the early examples of those kind of wacky, oh my god, the controls are broken, ha 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 games. But before those started getting ridiculous, this is obviously ridiculous as it is, but to a lesser extent than it was, than it is nowadays. You get stuff like I Am Bread and stuff like that, Goat Simulator, which are deliberately close to broken. This one is difficult to control, but still possible. Do you know what I mean? You can still master it and kind of get good at it without so much of a random element involved. Basically, you're an octopus masquerading as a normal human father, and everyone falls for it, which is quite daft. And you're just given a series of tasks. You use the shoulder buttons, the L, ZL and ZR to move your feet. So ZL lifts your left foot and ZR lifts your right foot. So you move with the stick to kind of walk. The left and right sticks move your arms about. Your left arm and your right arm. And I believe the L and R buttons grab with those hands, maybe just the R button. So yeah, and that's it. So you're basically grabbing stuff and running about and moving your arms about, and that's the general gist of it. And there's loads of kind of daft challenges like collecting pizzas, and the opening stage has you kind of ploughing your way through a church to get married and stuff like that. It's funny, it's daft and it's fun, but it is also good in that you can eventually learn to master it, unlike other games of its ilk. So it's fun. If you've never played Octodad, never get around to it, this is as good a place to do it. It's smooth enough, it runs well on Switch, it's not hampered in any way. It's a good port, it's a strong port, and you'll get a lot out of it if you're into these kind of daft YouTube friendly games where the zaniness of you playing it badly is half the fun. So yeah, that's worth a look. Then we've got Heroes of the Monkey Tavern, which I'll request to review a game. When I review games, I try to find out as little as possible about them, so I go into them with no preconceptions. Heroes of the Monkey Tavern, I purely asked for review code based on the name alone, because I thought this sounds awesome. Turns out monkeys are nothing to do with it. The Monkey Tavern is just the name of a tavern at the start with all these heroes meet up, and they've got no money, so they decided to go and raid dungeons again, or something like that. This is basically a very, very, very old school dungeon crawler type, first person dungeon crawler, in the style of let me think, Dungeons and Dragons Warriors of the Eternal Sun on the Mega Drive, and Dungeon Master on Atari ST and stuff like that. It's in that kind of vein where control is very limited, so there's basically an invisible grid, and you, with the D-pad, you step forward and sidestep left and right, and then with the L and R buttons you can do 90 degrees turns to the left and right. The controls are very unwieldy at first. It can take quite a while to get used to it, switching between your four characters and their attacks and their special moves. The attacking is deliberately clunky, so you're not just button mashing when you find an enemy. It becomes a kind of tactical affair. It's got a very high difficulty level. If you've never played a game like this before, it's going to take a hell of a long time to get used to. Especially your first battles, you will die every time. It takes a lot of practice if you're new to it. But if you stick with it, you do get there eventually. I'm admittedly still not very good at it, but I managed to finish it eventually. It's not a very long game. It's got something like 8 stages. Once you get the hang of it, you'll get through it fairly quickly. But it's for that type of game, it's fun. Admittedly, it's not my type of thing, but I got something out of it regardless. I still had occasional jumps, like when you go into a room full of snakes and you go, oh Jesus, or spiders or werewolves or whatever. You get that kind of like that initial shock, especially when you go into a room. It takes so long to turn around. Sometimes you go in and turn around and go, oh Jesus, and kind of try and run away. But if you run away too long, your guys take damage. But whatever. So yeah, this is a very niche type of game. It definitely won't be for everyone. It's a very nerdy isn't the word, because all games are nerdy, but it's a very it's got quite a high barrier of entry. Like you need to really be willing to accept a control system that isn't really used much these days. It's very, very old school in its nature, and you've got to kind of accept that to get the most out of it. But if you do, you'll like it. It looks the part. It looks okay for an indie game. Yeah, very, very old school. But if that's your bag, then it's one for you. A couple to go. Koi DX, or Koi Deluxe, I suppose if you want to call it that, on Switch, as these have all been. This is a lovely looking game. It's quite shallow though, no water pun intended. The general aim, there's kind of later levels where you get to do more, but the general aim is that you're a wee fish. A koi, I believe, which is a Japanese carp, fish fans. And you've got to just kind of basically make the river better by gathering up fish and collecting flowers, and basically it reminded me a lot of Flower, the kind of PS3 game, PS4 game. Not as nice as that. Nice isn't the word, because it's also still a nice game, but not as rich or engaging as Flower was. But it's the same kind of idea where you're collecting things and then triggering them to kind of you're collecting these kind of small flowers at the start of the game at least, and these in turn trigger larger flowers to blossom out and make the place look nicer, and eventually when you've triggered all the flowers they clear the path and you can move on to the next area. And then as you go on, more and more elements get added. You get these kind of weird mini games like the classic, I say classic, I hate them in every game, when you got to match the rhythm, so it'll come up and say bing 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 boom, and then you've got to repeat it like a Simon Says type thing. There's some of those, there's kind of jigsaw type puzzles and stuff. So it throws these mini games in to try and kind of make things a bit more complicated, and then it adds enemies later, like a kind of this massive black shadowy fish which kind of roams about and messes your fish up if it swims into you. So it does progress as you play along, get more and more complex, but it never really gets to the point where you think, oh, there's a lot to this. It's really deep. It's kind of light. It's a light game, light on content, light on kind of challenge, but it's fine. It's if you want something to relax with, it's pretty much as horizontal a game as you'll get. It's so laid back. It looks nice. It sounds really nice. Similar to Ben 10, it's got a really choppy scrolling. It's not like it's just like a 30 frames a second or anything like that. I could live with that, but it's the frame pacing. It's choppy. You can see in this video, like the movement isn't smooth. When the screen scrolls, it kind of stutters, and that's really off-putting, especially a game which is supposed to be relaxing. It can kind of, if you're the sort who gets distracted by that, it can be really distracting. But that aside, it's nice enough. It's harmless. It's not going to be on anyone's top 10 games lists, unless it's top 10 koi related fish games. But other than that, it is what it is. It's acceptable. It doesn't offend my sensibilities, but it's I'm not going to remember it 6 months from now, unfortunately. And finally, we've got Mantis Burn Racing on Switch again. This is also on other systems. It's on Xbox One and the like, which I've played it on before. This is now the Switch version, and it's a pretty good port. Similar to other Switch ports, the frame rate's dropped a bit, but other than that, it's pretty much a fully featured racing game. It's similar to the old school kind of 90s racers, like Micro Machines and stuff like that, where it's a kind of top-down viewpoint, and you're driving your car through a bunch of different. It's a basic racing game, but it's fun. It's fun to have a kind of a game that plays like those old games do, without any faffing about. It doesn't take too long to get used to the handling. You can do some really cool drifts around corners, and as you do drifts, you build up your boost, almost like kind of Ridge Racer style. So you're rewarded for kind of over the top skids and stuff, with speed boosts that can help you gain an edge. The career mode is long, very long single player career mode. Might be too long for some. It can get a wee bit repetitive because the number of tracks doesn't correlate with the number of events in career mode. There's a lot of repetition there, so you'll be playing a lot of the same tracks over and over and over again. But it's fun. It's got the kind of the extra. I believe there was DLC in the Xbox One, which I'm not sure if it was DLC or if it was just added later in a patch. But it's all here. There's like snow levels and stuff like that. So there's quite a lot to see and do here. If old school racing games are your bag, and I know I've been saying this for a lot of these so far, if this type of game is your thing, obviously it will appeal, but it could still have been bad, even if you like racing games, but it's not, thankfully. It's entertaining. I've been getting a kick out of it, especially in handheld mode. The cars are big enough to kind of see it. It does an interesting multiplayer where it's split screen, but the screen splits down the middle and the picture flips upside down, so you both sit at either end of the switch with your controls, and kind of face each other, like face to face. That's a really clever way of doing split screen, I think. So instead of you sitting side by side kind of trying to share a single screen, you're basically turning the switch vertically and sitting at either end. That's quite clever. It's a cool way of doing split screen. But yeah, Mantis Burn Racing, if you're after top down racing on the Switch, looks like this is the one to go for. So there we go, that's 10 fine games, well, mostly fine games, available now on your Nintendo Switch console, all on the eShop. Next week, I'm going to mix things up a bit. I've just got, for the foreseeable future, the majority of these games are going to be Switch, because that's just what I play most just now. That's the games I've been getting most review code for, because that's what my readers / viewers mostly know me from the old days when I was writing for the official Nintendo magazine. So obviously my audience is more interested in Nintendo than other systems, but that's not to say I don't play other things. So in the near future you'll be getting reviews of Xbox One, PS4, PC, mobile games as well. It's just Switch has been what I've been playing over Christmas. This is the backlog I'm catching up on. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this review roundup. Please do give me some feedback, share it on your networks of choice if you want other people to see it. Let me know what you thought of the video quality and stuff like that, any games you'd like to see on it. Please do like and subscribe to all the other YouTube stuff you're supposed to do to help bump these up. The more popular these get, the more I'll be doing. And yeah, let me know if you like this kind of more casual way of reviewing games. I like it personally. It saves me a lot of time, lets me focus more on my secret project that I'm working on. I appreciate a lot of people still prefer written stuff, and the written stuff will come again once this project finishes, but for now this is a way for me to review a lot of games in less time. So yeah, thanks for watching guys, hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you in the flip flop with another big review roundup soon. Thanks guys, bye bye.